Welcome to Uncle Jimmy's podcast. Sit back, relax, and enjoy the conversation.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone. Welcome into Uncle Jimmy's podcast. Today, we welcome a woman whose very presence feels like stepping into a candle-lit temple of truth, a place where the body remembers, the heart awakens, and the soul finally exhales. Rose Heartsong is not just an intimacy coach or a guide of sacred sexuality. She is a living invitation to return home to ourselves. She carries the wisdom of Tantra, the courage of shadow work, and the tenderness of someone who has walked through fire and learned to love the flame. Her work reminds us that intimacy is not something we perform. It is something we become. She invites individuals and couples alike to rediscover the language of the body, the medicine of desire, and the freedom that arrives when shame dissolves into honesty. Through somatic practice, sensual awakening, and conscious power play, Rose teaches people to reclaim the parts of themselves they were told to hide. She is a priestess of embodiment, a guardian of the erotic heart, and a voice for those seeking a deeper, more authentic relationship with love, pleasure, and truth. Today, she joins us to open a doorway, not only into her story, but into the stories we each carry in our bones. It's an honor to welcome the luminous, courageous, and deeply compassionate Rose Heartsong. How you doing today, Rose?
I'm amazing. How are you?
I'm very well. I'm good. I'm doing good. You know, and one of the biggest things is that she's an intimacy communication coach, and she specializes in somatic kink.
And it's really interesting because you did it. A lot of people do it. My name's Heartsong, not Heartstrong. But
Heartstrong.
my whole life, and it's really funny. It's like I feel like I've had a lot of experiences in my life where I've had to have a really strong heart. So
Yeah.
maybe there's some truth to that.
Yeah. So it's funny because I have it right here. It says hot song, and it just naturally just came out hot strong.
Yeah.
It's different. It's different. So tell us a little bit about yourself and what it is that you do with the intimacy communication coach, and what is somatic kink?
Yeah, well, I grew up in a very alternative lifestyle. And because of that, I've been able to see the world through a very different lens. I was from North Central Washington State. I was raised on a hippie commune around a lot of free loving, feminist, radical, politically anti government hippies, and around a lot of free love and a lot of women having children with like 5 different guys. And it was very chaotic. Like, it was a very chaotic way to grow up. And when I was 23, my mom died from breast cancer. Yeah, it was really slow, really challenging, really traumatic. I had a lot of trauma, and a lot of like emotional. A lot of times, people see the hippie community as kind of like this free living, free loving, peaceful, but there's a lot of drugs and rock and roll, right? And there's a
Yeah.
lot of emotional chaos. And that's like a side of that world that a lot of people don't really talk about. And it creates a lot of instability. And so because of that, I decided I made this decision after my mom died that I didn't want to end up that way. And in my own way, I kind of rebelled and became more quote unquote mainstream and normal with that lens of open-mindedness. So that kind of brought me into this really intense world of healing. I really committed to grieving for 2 years solid because one of the things I noticed with cancer, and I don't know if your followers understand this or not, but I believe 50% of cancer is what you eat and put in your body, and 50% is the emotional trauma that you haven't processed. And in my own experience with taking care of my mom at a really young age. So I really dove into holistic nutrition, wellness, eating healthy, making sure I was really healthy, and then also grieving the trauma, which a lot of people don't do. The majority of people kind of my aunt once told me, she's like, I'm really impressed that you didn't become like a heroin addict or something. A lot of people become alcoholics or addicted to cocaine or addicts, right? Or sex addicts, or that's kind of usually the world people go in through when with intense trauma at young age. And I chose to commit to healing. So I traveled to Asia and tried all these different healing modalities, and I discovered Tantra. And I didn't know what Tantra was. And a lot of people don't know what Tantra is still. But it's basically the art of sacred. It's making sexuality sacred, like kind of like a prayer almost. And with modern Abrahamic religions, we've separated sexuality from spirituality and we've taken it out of the bedroom and we've shamed it.
Yeah.
And we've guilt tripped, and there's a lot of shame and guilt about our desires and our pleasure and what we want. And that guilt and that shame creates a lot of toxic relationships with sexuality, aka porn, right? The majority of porn, if you go on porn websites, is like fantasies about having sex with like your brother-in-law or your sister-in-law, your stepmom, or your stepdad, like these really interesting, bizarre internal desires that are the most popular, right?
Yes.
We're all doing it. We're watching it as a culture. And that's how we're learning our sexual development. But when we watch porn, it makes us feel shame.
Some people.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
certain levels of porn create shame in the body, or they want to hide it, right? Like we're not out telling the world, oh, I watched this porno last night and got off and it was really fun.
Yeah.
Like you're not sharing, you're going to share, like, if you bought a new car, you're going to go tell your friends about it. But if you watched a really good porno last night and got off, you're not going to go share it with your buddies, right?
No. Exactly.
Yeah. So there's a level of shame involved in that. And so it creates kind of this cycle of disconnection from our sexuality. I just somehow, because I grew up really open-minded and in a culture where it's open, I just always was open talking about sex.
Okay. Now, was it something that was open when when you were living in the commune, you said, where you would see people?
I wouldn't see people having sexual relationships
Yeah.
per se, like, it wasn't like orgies or
Yeah.
anything, but there was a lot of nudity, and that was normalized.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
it wasn't sexualized.
Okay, yeah, because I think a lot of people mistake that. Like, you think of the hippies, you think of the free loving. Okay, everyone's having sex right in front of you. Everyone's doing it. Like, so it wasn't like it wasn't like the movies like to portray it. But there was a lot of free. That you said there was a lot of free love. There was a lot of drugs. There was a lot of chaos. You said.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people make that up because the hippies like to be naked all the time.
Yeah, yeah. They like to
But
be one with the earth.
yeah, and so, like, a lot of people, because they're not used to nudity except for with sex, then they'll attach that story to be like, "Oh, they're naked, so they must be having sex all the time." Which I feel like it's healthy to have a sexual person in front, like a person nude in front of you, and not have a sexual intimacy with them or desire. Like, there is a healthy element to that. But yeah, so then I just kind of got curious about this whole Tantra thing and this sacred sexuality. It helped me grieve a lot of my grief with my mom. It released a lot of trauma from my body and made me feel really happy and alive. And I was like, okay, what is this? So that was in 2013. So I've been studying and exploring and trying to figure out and understand. And now I work with couples who've been married forever and aren't having sex, or aren't having sex they want to have. And so I get to have the unique experience of, like, being really intimate without having any sexual experiences with my clients, but, like, being very intimate in what's happening behind closed doors and hearing those stories and understanding them from a very non-biased perspective.
Yeah. So having those conversations that need to be had.
Yeah.
So you're
So
almost like you're almost like you break the ice per se, because they probably can't have that conversation at home. I don't know where to start, so they come to you. Is that fair to say?
yeah, they don't really talk about it.
Yeah.
And there's, like, a lot of resentment built up for a long, long time.
Yeah.
And, like, either usually they're like, they get divorced if they don't talk about it, or somebody cheats, right?
Yeah.
So that's kind of what I do, is I kind of come in and I jokingly say I'm cheaper than cheaper than a divorce.
Those are very expensive.
Yeah, for sure. So what a somatic therapist, or a somatic kink therapist, I specialize in somatic kink.
Yeah.
Basically, have you ever heard of the concept of something called shadow work?
Yeah. Shadow work when it comes to healing and all that. Yeah.
So that was invented by Carl Jung.
Yeah.
He's like the grandfather of psychology, right? And one of the quotes I really love that I use a lot is, "Until you take the unconscious and make it conscious, it will rule your life and you will call it fate."
Okay. Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
So, like, we all have blind spots in our lives of things we don't see. And our partner's really good at pointing it out, but not necessarily in the nicest way, usually. You
True.
know? So I use kink, which is like erotic play, as a way to basically navigate through fights and arguments
Okay.
to help figure out what that unconscious is. And I bring it to the conscious and then I play with it
Okay.
instead of shame it.
Yeah. Yeah. So you help them out, like you said. Call her young, young. I think he's the guy, right? That had the people that come in and they would write about themselves, right? And he would have them read it time after time.
Yeah, it's just like learning who you are as a person.
Yeah.
In our society right now, a lot of men in your age range and, like cis white men really are not really learning themselves very much
Yeah.
as a whole. I don't know about you. Have you ever done therapy?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've been in therapy for 16 years almost.
Amazing.
So
That's
yeah.
incredible. I
Yeah.
love that. I always say therapy is like flossing your brain.
Yeah, I had, a similar experience to you. I was 26 when my father passed away from cancer. So instead of internalizing, I went a bit after he passed and internalized everything and pushed the shit down as far as I could, push it down, push it down, push it down. So I said, you know what? I'm either going to explode, blow up. So I got to call somebody. I got to talk to somebody. So yeah, I've reached out, and I suffer from anxiety, depression, and I have a therapist, and it's been great. It's been great. I think it's one of the things that guys need to learn to do is not everybody's okay, and we're in November, Men's Mental Health Awareness Month, where a lot of guys just pretend that it's okay because they're told to be strong, they're told to shut up, they're told not to talk about their feelings. Where hey, it's okay to. A lot of men won't admit that they go to therapy or that they seek help because they think it makes them
Right?
less of a man.
Mhm.
But to me, it makes you more of a man if you can admit your fault and admit your problems and issues and hash it out. And get to the real root of the problem.
Totally. I love that. Yeah, I love that you're speaking to that. I think that all humans should go to therapy,
No doubt about it.
just like all humans should floss their teeth.
No doubt about it. Yeah, and I think that gets lost. I mean, I think that goes for a bit of every, not just men, women as well. Everybody seems to think, especially nowadays where we live in a world where everything is social media driven, everything is instant gratification nowadays, where everybody's mad at the world and everybody's pissed off. And it's more like, to me, I love unconditionally, and when I get in relationships, it's 100% unconditional. I was lucky enough to be raised by two of the best parents that showed me what unconditional love looked like every single day till they took their last breath. So I try to heap that upon, people that I come in contact with, and I often say that, at the end, I'm divorced. I've lost some girlfriends. They really needed the love that I gave them, and I'm glad that I was able to give them the love that they needed.
So beautiful. Yeah, that's amazing. I love that so much. Yeah, and going to therapy is helping people like kind of get things out of our heads and really into reality and talking about stuff like that you don't want to talk to like your partner about or your friends about because they might judge you or shame you and so
Yeah.
forth. But the difference between a therapist, I'm not a therapist, and a coach is a therapist helps you process trauma
Yeah.
and a coach helps you get clear on what you want and make it happen.
Yeah.
So, what most clients who work with me come to me, they've been married 26 years, 32 years, 17 years, whatever, and they're bored in the bedroom
Okay.
or they're not having sex
At all.
at all
Yeah.
for
No
years.
intimacy, nothing, just
Yeah.
time for bed.
Yeah. Or they don't even sleep in the same bed anymore.
Yeah, it's tough.
And they love each other still, though.
Yeah.
And they love the companionship of the marriage. But the difference between a roommate and a marriage is sex,
Yeah.
right?
So true, yeah. Yeah,
And it's
you
the
can have
last
a
thing
million and
you
one
got.
roommates, it doesn't matter.
Yeah. And some marriages are just business partnerships. Like a marriage license is a business license, really.
Yeah.
It's not a love license.
Nope. Nope. To me, it's just, getting married to me is almost just a piece of paper, a contractual agreement that says, hey, if this ends, you get X, Y, and Z, or if you die, I get this, or if she dies, I get this. It doesn't mean that you love someone less or more if you're married or not. To me,
Yeah.
it's just a piece of paper.
100%. Yeah. So the core problem that couples have is they don't talk about it. They get frustrated, they shut down, they numb out, they go to their phone, they scroll. I actually recently just looked it up like in the last couple days. I'm like, what percentage of marriages are impacted by scrolling on their phone? And there was a study done that said 56%.
Wow. So almost 6 out of every 10.
And in the
That's
next
huge.
5 years, that's going to go 20 to 30% higher.
Wow. So almost like 75 to 20. That's
So technology is a huge problem when it comes to intimacy. So the first rule or guideline or suggestion I would give to couples is no technology in the bedroom
at all.
at all. No computers, no TVs, no phones, no tablets, nothing that can ding and bing and bring your attention away from each other.
So just
Would-
2 people with their, love for each other in the bedroom.
Yeah, or intimate, like intimacy doesn't actually, like, I think a lot of times people say, oh, intimacy equals like penetration,
Yeah.
but it's not, right? There's all sorts of different things. So, yeah, and that's hard. Like, I tell my clients, I'm like, take the TV out. And they're like, what? What are you talking? Or buy an alarm clock.
Yeah.
Don't have your phone next to your head. And they're like, what? What are you talking about? Like, what
Well,
do you
that's
mean?
like me as a man. One of the biggest things that I love is I love to cuddle, right? But I also like to be cuddled myself. I like to
Yeah.
be held. I like
Yeah.
my back rubbed. I like my hair, when they run through their fingers through my hair or, and I sometimes find that more intimate than, making love,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. 100%. Yeah. So if you don't have technology distracting you in the bed, you have each other.
Exactly.
You can express those desires to each other, right? And then another one is like, how many times have you gotten in a relationship at the beginning and it's hot and heavy and steamy and passionate and the sex is so good, and then it stops being so good over time, right?
Yeah, that happens.
Happens. And the reason usually is because at the beginning hormones help a lot, but it's also like we never think about going to the sexual gym, right? Pleasure and sexuality is never, it just kind of happens.
Yeah. So what do you mean by like the sexual gym?
So, one of the things I do with my clients is I have them do a weekly, what I call like check-in guide, or like if you were in business, you can think of it as like a board meeting. Like,
Okay.
so there is a weekly meeting that you sit down and kind of go through the potential, like the week. And it can involve anything from like the kids need to go to soccer practice on Tuesday, who's going to take them kind of thing.
Yeah.
But then it also goes to when are we going to schedule sex into our lives this week?
Okay.
And the idea of scheduling sex into somebody's schedule makes a lot of people go, what do you mean? What if I don't feel like it?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. So what do you do in that instance? Like for me, I'm more of like I'm more of like not a scheduled type, but like it happens.
99% of the population is that way.
Yeah.
And, we're at a place in which I don't know what the statistics are because I don't know if people are actually being honest of how many people are in long-term marriages and aren't having happy sex. I have the privilege of saying, oh, by the way, I'm an intimacy coach. And so then everybody spills everything on top of me all the time and they get to hear about it a lot more. I haven't, I don't know what the studies are, but I know that based on the fact that 56% of people saying that, phones are blocking intimacy, and we have, what is it, like a 64% divorce rate right now?
So
Right in the USA, I think it is. Um,
well, and
I'm
I
not.
think that too, and I'm not an expert. I think a lot of people nowadays find that their partners are disposable and they get rid of them. One of the hottest things I think is staying in a relationship and fighting through, whether it's something small, whether it's something big, and unpacking that baggage and getting to the root of the problem and staying together, because those are the relationships that really will last the true test of time. If you can fight, through it all and get through it all together as a couple or as a married couple or as a, someone that if you're in a partnership.
Yeah, it's 100,000% true. And the interesting thing is that as the more marriages you get, the higher the divorce rate is. Which is funny. It's like, "Ah, I can just get rid of this person and go to somebody else," but then it happens again. Um, and that's what I'm talking about is this relationship check-in guide. Like, I had a client over last night and, his wife keeps threatening divorce, and I was like, "Are you paying attention to your wife as much as you're paying attention to your job?" And he's like, "No." I'm like, "You've been with her for 32 years. You've had your job for, I don't know, like since 2018. And if you got fired, you're very elite in what you do. You can find another job.
Yeah, but you
But
can't
like,
find another wife. You
I mean,
can,
he
but not like
could
the one that he has after 30 plus years.
after 32 years. That's like that's something that he's not. I don't even know if he can. I mean, he could technically be married for another 32 years based on his age, but still, like that's a solid foundation. I'm like, okay, commit to your wife 100%,
Yeah.
like the same way. And that's the thing is, so many couples take each other for granted.
Yeah.
And also, the primary thing that causes, besides technology, is complaining.
Okay.
You didn't do this right. Why didn't you do that? What's wrong with you? Why can't you figure it out? Blah blah blah. Like this pokey. You can't like you're not like you're not meeting me. Like a lot of times, like the main thing is like couples will sit there and like point at the other person, and I'm like, what are you giving to the relationship?
Yeah, instead of poking each other and pointing each other's, flaws out, look at your own flaws. One of the biggest things I think is looking in that mirror at the person that you do have to face every day and coming to the truth of, hey, this is where my life's at. This is where it's going. This is what I want. This is what I don't want. But first, you have to be true to yourself.
Yeah,
know?
exactly.
And I
Yeah.
know you mentioned about the relationship. You were saying like 32 years that, you want him to commit and go 100% in. I think that's one of my hottest problems when it comes to relationships is I haven't dated much in my life. Haven't had many partners in my life. Um, but when I do, I'm very picky to the point of almost like I need that connection, that soul connection almost where it's very, very special for me, you know? I'm very picky, which some people aren't.
I want to invite you to, instead of saying the word picky, maybe replace it with the word intentional.
Oh, okay. Yeah, intentional. That's true.
It feels better, right?
It does feel better. Yeah.
Aren't like expansive versus picky feels kind of contracted.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, so like me, like I said, that's one of my biggest things is I go 100% in because I know, um, I have that connection with the people that I have dated or my ex-wife, that connection that I can feel it. It's not a conversation, it's a feeling, you know?
Yeah, you can't make up chemistry and it just is or it isn't.
No, and it stems from me, like one of the hottest things for me is I had a young, I'm talking 20 plus years ago. And I had a girl that I was very good friends with her and I had a crush on her growing up. And we were supposed to go to the prom together. And
Mhm.
we weren't dating, but she told me like 2 weeks before, I don't want to go with you and all this stuff. So I never went to my prom because of that. And it's often funny. I see her in the neighborhood nowadays. She got a couple kids but I laugh to myself and I still have that feeling of even my ex-wife, even my ex-girlfriends, I still have that, feeling deep down inside that, something just moves me about them, and there's only a certain few that do.
I think if you love somebody, you're gonna always love them in one way or another. I
Yeah,
think a lot of times people get really mean to each other in breakups and then they forget the love that they shared.
exactly. Yeah. Yeah, that's one thing, like I said to you before, I'm unconditional love, so I don't, I'm not upset when things end, I am. I cry, I get upset, but I'm not to the point of like, "Oh, I hate that person," or "I wish I never see them," or "I wish I never dated them." That's not me, I think back to my ex-wife and my ex-girlfriend, and think of all the good times that we had, all the trips that we had, all the, funny conversations, or just the simple nights of laying there watching a crime drama on TV, thinking back to a song that we listened to, thinking back to the time that we laughed till, we pissed our pants laughing because it was so funny, or just things like that. And I don't regret anything in life,
Yeah.
especially my love. That's one thing I don't do. I don't regret it. I give it and I give it freely. And some people can accept my love and some people can't, you know,
I have this theory, and I don't have anything to prove my theory, but my theory is that men are actually love bigger.
than women.
Like, you guys devote in a different type of way. Cause like, there's this, like, societal program that, like, men cheat more and men are have more sexual needs. Did you know that the concept that we still believe today that men need sex more than women comes from a fruit fly study in the 1950s?
No, I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's totally not true. It's women need more variety in sex than men do. And so if a woman shuts down, women usually shut down their sexuality sooner, but that's because they're bored. And it takes a lot of energy out of them to have somebody inside their bodies,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Like that's a lot of energy to take in. And if they're bored and not feeling satisfied, or they're not having really good orgasms and they're not having that nourishing experiences, then they'll shut down. But it doesn't mean that they're less sexual at all. A lot of my clients who are women are actually way more sexual when they let go of the shame and
Yeah.
when they let go of that like societal programming that like they need to be a good girl and not be too sexual or too slutty or anything like that.
Just let it out when that door closes.
Yeah.
You
Right.
know?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
because like you
So
said, too many of them, even guys, too many of them are taught. Some people, I grew up in a Irish Catholic household that, not that my mom and dad taught me that, but you can look it up and the only time you're supposed to have sex is to have children. You know,
which
you know,
is
I used,
crazy.
it's crazy. I used to joke to my dad when I got older, and I used to ask him, Dad, how many times did you have sex with mom? And he'd look at me all pissed off, and he'd be like, I only had sex 6 times, and I had 6 of you assholes, just joking around. And I'd be like, you only had sex 6 times. Like I remember asking my father if he ever used a condom, and he's like, a condominium, like the houses where people live, and I'm like, forget about it, Dad. But yeah, and one of the things for me is that when I talk about sex in general, not even sex, I don't call it sex, I call it love.
Hmm,
I don't think I've ever had sex in my life. I've made love.
that's really sweet. I
You know,
love
I,
and that I mean, that's kind of a lot of also the core foundation of one of the things I teach is sexual sovereignty.
yeah,
So, like, what does that mean, right? What does
yeah,
sexual sovereignty mean? Well, sovereignty means you completely own yourself, right?
yeah,
So, one of the things I teach is to own your sexuality. And that means for men, usually, everyone has different biological makings and hormones and ways we work, right?
yeah.
And a lot of times they'll take sex as a form to de-stress,
Okay.
right? A lot of times, not all, but majority of men will use sex to de-stress, but then they're like literally putting their stress into their partner.
Yeah, I never thought of that. Yeah, that's true.
And then their partner takes on that stress, right? And if their intention is to release stress, it's not always the intention to like connect or to create pleasure or to create presence, right? Like men get really mental. Well, men and women, both people, humans get very mental when it comes to sex.
Yeah.
They get in their head, and for men, that comes out as like premature ejaculation, erectile dysfunction, moving too fast. I would say 99.99999999999% of the men on the planet move too fast when it comes to sex.
Yeah. And do you think that's just because of, maybe watching porno, or maybe just that's how they think it should be, or
I think porn is our primary sexual education, and porn is fake because it's performance and paid actors,
oh yeah.
and they're made to do that. Yeah. And I also think it's because women don't know how to use their voice and ask for what they want.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So, like when I'm having sex with a new partner, I'm very clear up front what I need before he even touches me.
Okay.
I
So you
talk
always
about
have that conversation first.
Yeah, before there's any erotic energy in the room. I talk about testing, STI testing, when last time he got tested, how many partners he's been with since, did he use condoms, did he not? If I don't feel safe, I'll request he go get tested prior to anything.
Oh, okay. And how does someone, how do people respond to that?
It depends. I am confident, clear, graceful, and kind when I say it. So they respond well, but it's my body, right? And if this person gives me an STI, that's going to create a really big distrust in our relationship. And a lot of people aren't getting tested, even in monogamous relationships. And they're going from one partner to another to another. I think it's really, really important that if you ever have sex with somebody without protection or condom, that before you have sex with somebody else without a condom, you get tested.
You get tested, yeah.
Even if they say they're clean, you don't know anything about anyone until
No.
you've gotten tested yourself, right?
Sometimes you can't, sometimes you can't trust some people.
Yeah. Yeah. So really having that clear conversation, I want to make sure that my body's safe. I want to make sure that I am responsible for my own health. And sexual health is that's one level of sexual sovereignty, right?
Yeah. No, I think that's
If
amazing that you do that. I think that's, a bit different. I've never heard of that, but
I
like
think
you said,
everybody on the planet should be doing that.
yeah, no. And for my listeners, you heard what she said. If you're out there, as I like to say, slinging your dick, that's what I say, or slinging your vagina, before you move on to your next partner, make sure you get tested. Make sure everything's good because you don't know what people are carrying, whether it's you or your partner or whatever it may be. Just make sure you do get tested because that's how things can go wrong. That's how you can get sick. So, and you can get other people sick as well. So take care of that, people, or use a condom.
Yeah, use a condom if you're not in a committed relationship, right? If it's a couple times. And another thing is everyone's like, I don't like condoms, right?
Yeah.
Well, if you're using condoms and you're not using lube, but you're gonna not like condoms. And most people don't use lube,
when they,
right?
when they're when they're having sex. So that's what you said. They don't use lube. They don't, they'll use a condom, but no lube.
Yeah, and condoms without lube sucks.
Yeah.
It just does, regardless of how wet the woman is. And there's a lot of shame with lube. It's like, oh, I don't need lube. I'm wet enough. And it's like, no, it's not coming from a place of lack. It's coming from a place of nourishment, right?
Yeah.
It's like when I shampoo my hair, conditioner helps. Right?
Yeah, it's a little bit of an aid, but it's not, that doesn't mean that you're not, sexually attracted to somebody or anything like that because, condom can cause friction and all that stuff. If you're using a condom, make sure you use the lube.
I always suggest water-based lube. Don't use oil-based lube with condoms. It can break them. So a clean water-based lube is really good to get. Don't get anything with any fragrances or sweeteners of any kind and tasting and everything because it actually can cause yeast infections because of the sugar. So you don't ever want to put that inside a lady bar.
No. There's sugar and stuff. That's crazy.
Yeah, there's a lot of lubes that actually are really not good for the vaginal microbiome and the pH. And so I think that's another reason that there's shame around lube is a lot of times women will actually get a bacterial vaginosis infection or a yeast infection because they're using lubes that have sugars in them, which creates issues down there. And then there's a lot of shame with that, right? Because
Yeah.
a bacterial vaginosis infection is it smells bad and it's shameful and it's itchy and it's uncomfortable and it's the worst thing ever and nobody wants that after sex.
Yeah.
Making sure to have a clean water boost lube to avoid shame around sex.
Yeah.
Oh,
Or water-based lube when you're using condoms. Don't
Yeah.
use anything with sugar, flavor, fragrance, just water-based. Very simple.
and for some reason, Japan makes the best condoms. I don't know why, but they do. They're thin and they stretchy and you can't so if there's a condom and you're like, I hate this, it's horrible. There's a lot of other condoms out there, so try them.
Yeah. Like you said, it seems like Japan makes everything, that's great. Electronics, condoms, a little bit of everything, they get the best.
Yeah. So that's a huge piece of sexual sovereignty, right? Because you don't want to deal with unintended pregnancies. That's hell. You don't want to deal with STIs. That's really uncomfortable. The good thing, though, is gonorrhea and chlamydia, they're not really that big of a deal. It's worse to get mono or strep throat than it is to get that. It's just there's a lot of shame because it has to do with sex. One shot and you don't have sex for 7 days and you're good.
Oh, okay.
It's really easy to get rid of. Herpes, obviously, is another story, and that's not fun, but you do want to tell your partner if you have it prior to having sex. It's important to communicate that, and it can be transferred even with a condom. So making sure that person doesn't have a breakout is really important.
Yeah. So, Rose, I think one of the biggest things that you keep saying is the communication. Communication is huge,
100%. Yeah, so that's a huge piece of sexual sovereignty. And then the other piece of sexual sovereignty is, really understanding what it is that you want and desire. Most people, I'm like, okay, what do you want? And they're like, more sex. I'm like, okay, well, what kind of sex? More sex. I'm like, what turns you on? I don't know.
Yeah.
Right. So getting exploratory within your own self, you can read and learn and understand. Porn does help with introducing you to new different concepts, but I actually have it's a Tantra Kink list on my website that can help. It's a free download that you can go through and there's 4 pages of all the different sexual acts you could potentially possibly do.
And where can they find that? What's your website?
It's roseheartsong.com. So just kind of getting curious and trying new things. Another one that I highly recommend is, have you ever heard of something called the 5 love languages?
No.
Okay.
And don't mind me, Rose. As you can see, I got a pen and I'm taking some
Oh,
notes too.
great. Oh, I love this. So there's 5 different love languages, and it was written by, gosh, I don't remember his name. The 5 love languages. So there's a book and a quiz, and you can take it for free online. And it's by Gary Chapman. And basically, he says that we love people 5 different ways. So I'm really curious because you're a big lover, right? You have a huge heart and you have a big love.
Yeah.
And and that's beautiful.
Thank you.
But there's 5 different ways that we love each other. There's 5 different ways that we love and love to be loved. And so I'm going to go over those really quick.
Yeah.
One of them is acts of service. So, like doing things for somebody, like taking out the trash, picking up groceries, getting somebody roses, preparing a bath for them, or making dinner, giving a massage, or like doing something, an action to help their life, like filling your partner's gas tank up with gas. Like those little things, right?
An
They're like
oil change or
oil change. Yeah, like making their lives easier and like giving to them, right? And then there's quality time. That's spending intentional time with that person. For the scrollers out there, it's a big problem because they're sitting next to each other, but not actually creating quality time because they're sitting on their phone scrolling.
they're there but not present,
Yeah, and that's different.
And you
So
got to be present in the moment.
quality time is like intentional, intimate, like date nights or really being with each other.
Yeah.
And then there is gifts, giving gifts of any kind. The gifts one I've noticed is kind of less on the list actually for the majority of people. But the people who are gift givers, they're just like always giving gifts. Like, here, have this, here, have this, here, have this, here, have this. They just love to give gifts. And there is physical touch, which sounds like from what you told me, I bet physical touch is one of those ones for you.
Yep. No doubt about it.
That's like you want to be connected, you want to cuddle, you want to hug, you want to like always be touching them or connecting with them. Like, like when you're sleeping, your like toes are touching or like
Exactly. I have to have some part of my body, whether it's my hand, my arm around them or my foot, and that's just that connection still has to be there while I'm in bed,
Yep. I had a feeling. I had a feeling on that one. So, and then there's words of affirmation. That's like genuine care from your heart. Like, thank you so much for getting me gas. I really loved it. Or thank you so much for everything you do for the family. Or you're so beautiful today. Or like genuine, caring, intentional affirmations of care. Or you're so sexy right now. Or like, you look amazing today. Things like that, right? So, in relationships, a lot of times after the honeymoon phase or like, the erotic explosion kind of wears off, which usually is for some people can be 6 months into the relationship, other people 6 years. It just really depends on who they are. They are loving each other deeply, but maybe like let's say you're always touching your partner, but their deepest core desire is to have words of affirmation and you never tell them how beautiful they are.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. I can tell you though, for myself, right? And this is just me. So the 5 love languages, I always acts of service, always quality time, always gifts, always physical touch, and always words of affirmation.
That's a good balance.
All
That's
5.
amazing. You like to be touched the most, but what do you think is the next one on the list for you to receive love?
So for me, it would be probably, words of affirmation.
You like to be appreciated for the
But oftentimes as men, you don't, here's the crazy statistic, right? It's true that a lot of men, the first time they receive their flowers, you know when it is?
on their funeral.
At their funeral.
I mean, I love getting men flowers.
I love
It's a
to
piece of
receive
kindness.
flowers, like in my past relationship, I would always bring, not always, but when I did stop and get flowers, I would always bring some for her daughter as well,
Beautiful.
So,
You want to hear how much time do we got? Where are we at?
we got plenty of time.
Okay. Do you want to hear a really sweet story?
Yeah.
So I'm going to go a little like down the rabbit hole of woo woo and like esoteric. Is that okay?
Yeah, no problem at all.
Okay, cool. So I am part of something called the Academy of Oracle Arts. It's an a training to study oracle sciences. So like the Kabbalah, which is ancient Jewish mysticism,
Yeah.
and Hermetic wisdom, which is like ancient Egyptian cosmology, like the ancient Egyptian spiritual practice, right? Like very old spiritual lineage practices. In the modern day world from the outside, it kind of looks like woo-woo witchcraft.
Say,
Yeah, but it's just because we don't understand what it's about, right? So when there's a lack of understanding, there could be fear sometimes. And so when we put that fear on, but so the training I'm in is it's all very clean and beautiful, and it creates beauty in the world and love. There's no like dark energy.
yeah, that makes perfect.
Yeah, so the teacher who has the training, there's this big music festival every year in California called Lightning in a Bottle.
Okay.
Like 40,000 people go. It's a big festival. It's like a big like EDM music festival. And every year for the last, I think, 4 years, they've had what they call a rose ritual. And there's a man, and the man went to Egypt, and he went into the big pyramids in Egypt, and he almost had like this spiritual awakening. And part of his spiritual awakening was he was guided to grow roses.
Yeah,
That was his life path, was to grow roses.
roses.
Which is like, okay, cool, awesome. Let's grow some roses. And so every year he brings 130 pounds of rose petals to Lightning in a Bottle Festival in order to create this rose ritual.
So cool.
And the cool thing is that so they do a prayer, right? It's a big like ritual is kind of like a prayer. It's a big prayer to like stand for the potential healing of the planet.
Yeah.
And the last couple of years, they have created a ritual in order to anoint the men and the masculine and like help him rise. They've covered his whole body in rose petals. Isn't that amazing?
Yeah.
With the intention of inspiring him to rise up and to do work on himself and to grow and to protect instead of destroy,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah, I think too much, too sometimes, like you said, to protect, not destroy, I think oftentimes people that do, relationships sometimes when they end, either the man or the woman just want to destroy each other. For what?
They loved each other once.
Yeah. And for me, love don't go away. It just means that I can love, I'm not with you, but I still love you, but I'm going to love you from a distance, and I'll support you from a distance, and I'll clap when you make it. Now, unfortunately, I'm not going to be there when you fall, but, I will be there to support you and love you from a distance. That's how I feel.
Yeah, no, 100%. So I have another piece of the equation. So I told you the love languages, right?
Yeah.
So now there's sexual languages.
Okay.
So there's a way that you love and there's a way that you sex.
Yeah. Of them are there. How many of this? There's 5? Okay.
Just like the love languages, there's 5. And it was invented by a woman named Miss Jaya. And you can Google Miss Jaya like sex quiz, or it's called the erotic blueprints. And you can take a test and find out what your blueprint is or what your sex language is. So the majority of straight men are usually not all, but the majority of straight men are what we call sexual. And that's what we're all supposed to be all the time, right? Sexuals get turned on by nudity and genitals and the act of sex, and they kind of just like want to get it on right away.
Yeah.
That's how they do it. And that's how our society sees porn, right? That's how kind of porn is. We have a little bit of kinky porn, but like primarily it's like they're talking and then their clothes are on and then all of a sudden they go straight to sex.
Exactly.
Porn. Right? There's not like any like, you don't see the in between. It's like, hi,
Yeah.
like sucking cock.
Exactly. There's no kissing. There's no, big hug. There's no rub. It's the pants off, and then from there it goes.
And that's the sexuals, really. They grab, get to grab your ass or grab the boob. Like, they're really into just like sex and like, and they're really easy to get turned on, and they're always down to have sex. So there's the light side of each one, and then there's the shadow side. And in the shadow side with the sexual types is they have a tendency to go too fast can get selfish and only focus on their own sexual desires and pleasures. They can be abrasive a little bit,
Okay.
and they might they come across as selfish sometimes. That's the primary one. So that's 1/5 of the population, though.
20%.
That's it. Yeah, 20%.
Yeah.
But that's how we're all supposed to have sex based on our societal programming,
Right.
subconscious societal programming, right?
Yeah.
So then there's sensuals, and this is a lot of women. A lot of women are sensuals. And sensuals, they love the lighting, and they love the incense, and they like the nice music, and they like the fresh, clean sheets, and the rose petals, and the sweet kisses, and the caresses, and feel all the textures and have like everything be cozy and warm and inviting and sweet. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm imagining probably had sex with a woman like that.
I have.
Probably. Most likely.
No.
No? Really? Oh, wow.
Nope.
'Cause usually a lot of women are that way. That's why. That's why I was making it up. And then their kind of shadow side is they're perfectionists. So if it's not perfect, they don't want to have sex,
Nope.
right? They're like, oh, like you're not dirty, go take a shower. Or, I need a shave, or like I need to clean the whole house, or whatever, right?
Yep.
And so then there are the energetics. And they get inspired and activated by like sexting and like flirting throughout the day and like playing with the sexual allure and the energy, like that kind of like sneaky, like erotic play, right?
Yep.
And they love like erotic, sexy shots, or like little like coming up and whispering in your ear what you're going to do to the person later, or like playing kind of like like alluring them.
Yeah.
Their shadow side is they actually don't always love the act of sex.
Yeah.
They don't actually want it. They want the idea of it.
Of it. Yeah.
And you seem to resonate with.
Yep.
Oh, yeah. So that's their shadow side too. And then there's kinky. And kinky, they like what's taboo. And that could be some people who are raised in like, very religious backgrounds. That could be doing it doggy style.
Yeah.
Or all the way down to the craziest, most kinky dungeon BDSM scene you can possibly imagine.
Imagine. Yeah.
Anywhere in between. I'm kinky, and so I talk about sex on the radio a lot, and that's very taboo. And so that fulfills that part of my erotic blueprint. I'm not like sitting on the radio turned on, but it's nourishing that piece of my sexual blueprint, if that makes
Yeah.
sense. Right. And so like kinkies like to try different things. They like always are interested in exploring and like trying new things and pushing edges, and what can we do next, and let's have sex outside, and what if we get caught, and let's try this kinky thing, and let's get flogged, and like blindfolded, and
Yeah.
all the different wild things that come along with the kinky.
So they're open to just about, not just about everything, but they're willing to try new things.
They're willing to be, and they need creativity.
Oh.
They definitely need creativity in the bedroom. The shadow side is they have a tendency to become more of the sex addicts.
Oh, okay.
And like they're never nourished and satisfied because they're always like trying a new edge. They always want to get to the next edge.
Well, because for me, I think like one of the misconceptions is like when you think of someone like kinky or kinky sex, you think of like just like someone that likes to be tied up, or someone that likes this kink, or, but it's, that you're open to trying new things,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Different things out of your comfort zone.
Yeah, not just whips and chains and tying people, it's different.
And it can be psychological too. There can be a huge psychological piece to kink, and also can be like having dominant submissive roles to sexually. There's a lot of different levels to kink, and it's really powerful. But there's also like the intentional piece, or the messy piece, right? And all of the things when it comes to sexuality, there's always messiness and available, and intentionality available, right?
Yeah.
Kind of talked about that a little bit with your picky aspect. You're intentional,
Intentional, exactly.
which is great. So am I. And then the last one is called a shapeshifter.
Okay.
And shapeshifters are a little bit of everything. They're a little bit kinky, they're a little bit erotic, they're a little bit sexual, they're a little bit sensual, and they have all of them interwoven into them. And they actually need the most variety.
Okay.
more than a kinky person does.
They need
Kinkies just
more.
like they want the kinkies are more like chasing the next high versus like the shapeshifters really need the variety.
And what happens if they don't get that? They move on to.
They get resentful. Their shadow side is that a lot of times that like if they're with a sexual and they're only just having sexual sex, or with a sensual and they're only just having sensual sex, 3/4 of them are getting forgotten, and so they build resentment really easy. They're the ones that get the kind of the most resentful in the bedroom.
Yeah, learning something new over here.
So we have our 5 love languages and we have our 5 sex languages.
Yeah.
And when I'm working with couples who've been together for a while and that spark has been gone, those are the first foundational tools I use with them to help speak the language together.
Almost to reignite that spark almost.
It reignites their spark. Yeah. And so, especially with the blueprint, the sexual blueprint, it helps to bring a lot of shame off their shoulders of like, I'm doing sex wrong,
Yeah.
right? They're not doing sex wrong. They're just doing sex their way.
Yeah. Is there a wrong way to do sex? Would you say? Or no?
Yeah, if it's non consensual.
No, no, no. Yeah, yeah, that's true.
And a lot of sex in marriages is unconsensual,
Oh,
unfortunately. Like very nuanced, right? It's like the man usually wants sex, the woman doesn't. He pushes, then finally gives in and has sex even though she doesn't want to,
just to get it.
just to get him to shut up. And it's like service sex, and underneath it, it's really unconsensual sex, even though she's saying yes. Or, you know, unfortunately, and I get angry at women when women do this, but like women will get drunk and then they'll have sex with a guy and then they'll like be like, he took advantage of me. I'm like, no, you were drunk. Like, let's be honest.
Yeah.
There's the line. We don't need to blend it, right? But if a woman says no, it's a no.
Yeah, no means no.
No means no, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and so, like, a really respectable man will I've spoken to men and they're like, women are so conditioned to say no and then have the guy push it that when she says no, I get up, put my clothes on, and go to leave, and she's like, "Wait, what are you doing?" And he's like, "You said no.
Yeah.
That's what you should be doing."
Yeah.
Right? That's sexual sovereignty. That's owning your sexual energy.
Yeah.
On the female side, though, we have a tendency to be manipulative and coercive with our sexual energy. We use it to get what we want. And we'll shut down and block it out and numb and disconnect. And we'll make it a power play, unfortunately. And we forget about the fact that sex is one of the most powerful, healthy, pleasurable experiences for females. Just like orgasms are medicine, and like, but the thing is most women are putting our sexual pleasure on the man, so it's
Okay.
his job to please us. I don't know what I want. I don't know what feels good. I feel shame to pleasure myself. I don't know what my desires are, so I'm just gonna let him figure it out, but I'm not gonna tell him, and then I'm just gonna like let him fumble around, and then I'm gonna get mad when he doesn't figure it out,
Yeah.
which is not fair.
Not fair at all. Yeah. Yeah.
But I will say, being a woman who is crystal clear on what she wants and knows how to communicate it does impact men's egos a lot because they're not used to it.
Would you say it hurts their egos or?
Yeah.
I mean, for me, it would be like, okay, she knows what she wants. She knows, that's
You've been in therapy for 16 years.
true, but that's like you said, one of the biggest things you love to communicate. You love to, be upfront.
Mhm.
That's like one of the biggest things in a relationship, being upfront, being honest, you know, uh, and telling your partners, like, this is what I like, this is what I don't.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the funny part for me is that not funny, but so before we started this conversation, it's very hard for me to say and talk about, sex in general. I often turn red and, get very uncomfortable sometimes speaking about it, but, I appreciate you came on because there's so much where, what we discussed and what we're currently talking about, one of the biggest things is communication and, the sexual love languages, the love language itself. It's sort of like brightened my horizons, sort of opened up my mind a little, got me thinking.
Amazing. I love that. And if you wanted to explore more in a safe way in your own home, there's some really fun shows on Netflix you can watch. There's 3 that I recommend.
And what are the,
There's one called Sex, Love, and Goop. It's a Gwyneth Paltrow show, and she talks about She brings in different sex therapists with different couples and goes through different challenges and helps show the process of healing with a sex coach or sex therapist. And it's pretty vulnerable and powerful. And the woman who invented the erotic blueprints is on that show.
Okay.
You can learn about that a bit more from her. And then it's kind of like it's a taboo show. There's some kind of out there stuff, but it's really broadens your horizons of like what's possible and what different realms of sexual healing there are. Highly recommend it. Even if you're uncomfortable, I recommend watching it. And then there's one called The Principles of Pleasure
Okay.
on Netflix as well. And that talks a lot more about like the science of pleasure and understanding why we get turned on the way we do and like how our bodies work and all of that. But they make it fun and sexy and like entertaining.
Yeah.
And then the other one that's really fun is it's called How to Build a Sex Room.
How to build a sex room.
Yeah, and it's this little funny British lady who has cute sneakers, and she goes into people's homes and asks them what they want to explore in their sexuality and what room they want to be designed. And then they leave, and she remodels that room into a room that's just for sex.
Okay.
Fun thing about that is she brings in all the different types of sex toys and like talks about different dynamics you can have and so forth. So yeah, so for those of you who are listening, I would start with doing your love language, doing your erotic blueprint, understanding that, and watching those shows. It's a really good start like to explore and expand your sexual horizons.
No, I appreciate it. So before we close, we've had Rose Heartsong. She's an intimacy and communications coach in Somatic Kink. In where can they find you? If they want to, I know you said you're on the radio. If people want to listen to you, where can they find that? Where can they find some of your work? Where can they find your? I know you said roseheartsong.com.
You just want me to be strong.
I think you are strong.
Oh,
Sitting here, you being able to talk about this and coach others and, it takes a lot to be a coach, especially in this arena, let's say, of, sex and intimacy and all that. But it takes someone that has to be, fully, aligned with, what we talked about, what we spoke about, the 5 sex languages, the 5 love languages. You're so in tuned with all that where you have so much great knowledge, where some people would just be like, "Oh, she's a sex coach," or, no, you're not. You're intimacy and communications. And the biggest thing that I got from you today was one of the biggest things, and I think in a relationship is communication.
yeah, I help people communicate about things that are uncomfortable.
Yeah, and I think
In
one of the
an
things in
easy
my
way.
relationships is that I've almost maybe lacked that, you know?
Most in all honesty, I hate to say it, and I don't wanna, like, put a, like, an X marks the spot on you, but most men are that way.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
So
women too. There's
yeah.
women a lot of women too, but it's usually men who have a harder time talking about, like, vulnerable things when it comes to intimacy.
Yeah.
And I love to help, bring that out. One of the things actually, one of the I have some clients that they've been together for 26 years and I've been working with them. And I asked them some questions the other day because we're almost done with our package. Like, what did they learn from me? And it was a huge honor. The wife actually said, she's like, we've worked with 3 different or relationship therapists over the years. And she's like, they always like make it the man's fault to change. Like they always put all of the like stuff on him to change. And she's like, you're really balanced. You call me out on my shit too. And I really appreciate that.
No, that's awesome. And I think it is. I think in a relationship, it's not, I forgot where I saw it, but in a relationship in general, it's not always going to be 50-50, Some days going to be 60-40, some days 70-30, some days 80-20. But you have to have a balance in that. It shouldn't be 80-20 for the man every day or 80-20 for the woman every day. There should be a balance. But,
I invite my couples to both be 100%.
oh, okay.
So when you're 100% and your partner's 100% and you're both giving each other 100%,
Yeah.
nobody's gonna lack anything.
Anything at all. Yeah.
No, and when you focus all your intention on loving your partner and sexing your partner the way they desire, and your partner's doing the same thing, you both are happy.
No. So Rose, before we go, is there any, messages? Is there any specific one message you could give to people that are, struggling in a relationship with intimacy and communication, one big piece of advice.
Learn how to breathe. Go onto YouTube and search breath work and try different ones until you like the ones that you resonate with. 99% of the people aren't breathing together,
Yeah.
and it's creating stress and tension, and it's that simple, but it's that complex. And you can find me at roseheartsong.com. I'd love to do a complimentary consultation. It's on the front page. 30 minutes, we can get on Zoom and chat to see. I work with couples in person in Orange County, and then also I can do it virtually anywhere in the world. And we usually go on a 3-month journey together of transformation because, a lot of the couples that come to me have been married for 15 plus years, and you got to go on a journey to unravel some of the programs we got.
Yeah, doubt about it. You have to, and it's not something that's going to change or happen overnight, 24 hours, one session, everything's going to change. I had
No.
a guy on the other day and I was speaking with him, and one of the questions I hit him with was he was talking about how he got married and then he got divorced a couple years later. And he said, the key word was, he said, the both of us brought baggage into marriage. And I said to him, did the both of you ever sit down, take that baggage, unpack it, go through it and throw it out? He said, no, we basically put it in the closet. And I go, well, that was the problem,
Yeah.
because that's how I'm a firm believer of that in relationships. And we're all, unfortunately, you're always going to have baggage. You're always going to bring baggage. But if you have a partner that's willing and able to sit there with you and unpack both your baggage, both your trauma, both everything that you have, and you unpack it together, that's where it starts. The foundation can be built for a, great relationship. So
Yeah.
Rose, I appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, well, I just want to say every single Sunday night in Pacific Standard Time, so it might be late for some other people in the country, but every single Sunday at 9 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, if you go to kxfmradio.org, I have my show. It's called Follow Your Heart Song, and I talk about sexuality, spirituality, and holistic healing and anything taboo. And then my podcast is Follow Your Heart Song, and it's on all platforms. And I think I do want to say the primary thing when it comes to sex with couples, I would recommend for men to slow down in half and then slow down in half again and then slow down in half again and then slow down in half again. And then maybe you're going slow enough, maybe, potentially. And that's where breathing comes in to help you breathe. And then for women, I know this sounds a little like raunchy or erotic, but like start touching yourself. Put your hands inside of your vagina. Understand how your vagina works. Try different toys. Try different things. Turn yourself on. Do different breathwork techniques that can help turn on your pussy because a lot of women are really numb down there and they don't really have a relationship with their vagina and vulva and all the reproductive organs. And so really start understanding how you like to be touched so then you can ask your partner to touch you that way.
Touch you that way. No, that's great. And like you said, so you can be found at kxfm.org.
FM radio.
Yep. And that's Sunday nights,
And Sunday nights at 9 p.m. Pacific Standard
9
Time.
p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And you can follow.
And I'm live. Yeah.
And she's live. Follow your hot song
Mhm.
podcast, streaming everywhere. So Rose, what you shared with us today feels like a conversation, feels less like a conversation and more like a remembrance. A
Mhm.
remembering of what is possible when we stop performing connections and start living it. You're giving us a map back to our bodies, back to our truth, and back to the quiet brilliance that lives underneath our defenses. There is a rare strength in the way you speak, not forceful, but undeniable. You teach with a softness that doesn't shy away from the shadow, and a clarity that gives people permission to step into their own power without apology. Listening to you, one can feel the intellect of someone who has studied deeply, but also the wisdom of someone who has lived courageously. You remind us that intimacy isn't something we earn, it is something we allow. It's the courage to be seen, the willingness to feel, and the intelligence of choosing truth over comfort. Through your work, you are offering people something the world is starving for, a path toward relationships that are honest, embodied, awakened, and kind. On behalf of all of us, thank you for bringing your presence, your fire, your humility, and your sacred insight into this space. Thank you for reminding us that desire is not dangerous, that the body is not an enemy, and that connection, real connection, is a form of brilliance we can all cultivate. May the conversations you spark ripple outward, changing homes, changing relationships, and changing the inner landscapes of those brave enough to listen. And may your voice continue to illuminate the places where healing and desire meet, where humans finally remember how extraordinary it is to be alive, awake, and intimately connected. Rose, thank you.
You're welcome. Also, you can find me on Instagram at Rose Heartsong.
Perfect. Instagram, Rose Heartstrong.
Heartsong?
Hot song. See, it's so crazy. I just, you just said it too. Rose Hot Song. And I go, yeah, Rose Heartstrong. I think it's just because you have a very strong heart, I think so, and it's just, I really do. I appreciate you coming on,